Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Zooster by Night, whereupon that we are following the trials and tribulations of the various fiendish Canaanites that haunt this city. Tonight, we will meet with Seth Firefly, the legate of the Firefly Pack, who the previous night had made an appointment to meet with Bishop Bratos, who has been gracious enough to grant him an audience at the Angel Sanctuary. So, continuing from the previous scene, Seth is still lethargic and not very mobile. He has given up walking with a cane, as the only part of his leg missing still is his foot, but that is still slowing him down, and the nausea is not helping matters either. Seth will make his way to the Angel Sanctuary and will make notice knocking at the front door.
Which is opened by a familiar figure to most people, one murder Bratos. Oh, Legate Seth, please come in.
Greetings.
This might actually be the first time Seth gets to view the area called Angel Sanctimas in the candlelit conditions. Don't recall.
Probably, because I think it was fairly well lit the other time I've been here, so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Almost yes, to the level of inviting people to activate some sight enhancements if they have any, though if you're willing to work with it, you'll probably be okay anyway.
Well, I won't activate my Auspex, and I don't have night vision, but the candlelight will illuminate enough, I'm sure, that as long as I follow the shadow that's letting me in, I should be safe enough traversing.
Mm-hmm. Let's go upstairs since you were polite enough to organize this meet. Lead you upstairs to a big room with a relatively large table. You theoretically could fit most of the city's bats around it. All members accounted for. Not a grand feat right now, but occasionally it is. Please have a seat. Would you like a drink? And now one of us has fallen off the list. I have a suspicion it might be Shay, but let's check. Sorry. Ned decided to be helpful. One, two, three, four. Some connectivity issues going on. Don't you worry, man.
he's back.
Welcome back.
Thank you. So last I was following you up the stairs, and then that's where I lost sight.
Okay. I figured it was one of us that was having connectivity issues. Alright, leads you upstairs to a relatively large room that has a relatively large, heavy wooden table around which a large pack could be fit around. Well, actually, most of the city's packs, because
We're all small packs.
yeah, that's why. So, in that process, he says, please have a seat. Would you like a drink?
I will politely decline, Your Eminence.
Very good. Takes a seat at the other end of the table and goes, you requested my time. I
Yes,
trust this is going to be important enough.
I believe so, Your Eminence. I have both personal and business matters to discuss. Not sure which would be. Well, actually, I will start with some of the personal items because I think that I need to get out of the way first. I saw your notice of the challenge of monomacy to Bishop Middlewaith. I could not help that noticing that it was very strongly worded along the lines that my pack itself was being included in this challenge. There have been other events, some I will admit are very obvious to me where we have slighted you, but other events, there seems to be a little bit more from my perspective where I don't understand exactly where the anger towards myself specifically or my pack comes from. I was wondering if perhaps you could illuminate that on me before I provide my report.
You wish to understand why I am upset with your pack. Understandable enough. You recall the last time the two of us had a discussion?
Yes.
You recall that I accepted your plea of ignorance as it pertained to this specific area and the fact that I was the person who held sway.
Yes.
I imagine you also recall me giving both yourself and Kaylee a task to be done with for my having to have exerted my time and influence over the mortals to clean up a mess.
Yes.
Well, as it pertains to your pack, Kaylee later returned and had successfully completed the task to the best of my knowledge, which would have on its own meant that I would have harbored no further ill will towards your pack, as it was a matter settled. Now, I'm not quite certain what the middleweight has been telling you, but Briarville was supposed to be one of the safest locations that the mortal populace thought of in this city. I wanted to see if it was possible to create an area from which the sensation, the feeling, the notion of peace would spread to the hordes. To get them moving during the night, to get them spending their money, and to get them to be polite with each other. Quadruple homicides are bad for that. Now, that was fixed. And the fact that your Justice invited himself over to question me about kidnapping Kaylee. Apparently because somebody had told him that Kaylee had been kidnapped by Dursanger Vulven. He seemed to be under impression that this had been done forcefully. I showed Dursanger to him, told him to, well, deal with that business between them two. It wasn't on my orders, but it landed on my doorstep anyway. Now, I had instructed a large portion of your pack before 21 people were slaughtered in a bar in this area not to do such kind of things. It seems to me your pack is either hard of hearing or understands a bishop's preferences towards an area but chooses to ignore them. Cardinal advised me on the issue and said I should regard this problem between myself and the bishop responsible for your pack. That is why Bishop Middleway was the person I called to answer for the insult.
Well, that explains a little bit more. I wasn't sure if there was other issues that I was unaware of. I wasn't exactly sure that Alistair had not scheduled an appointment, or that he didn't necessarily have all the facts when he spoke with you. Of that, I will attempt to school him on how to properly behave when dealing with a bishop, as that seems to be a recurring theme.
Oh, I heard he had lied to Bishop Kashrimi about his intents as it pertained to some assets of Kane's bastards. Now,
Yes.
like Middleweight says, one shouldn't be surprised that there are ulterior motives. Yeah, I'll agree with that. I'd usually be very, very surprised if a Lazumbra or a Ductus or a priest didn't at least have some ulterior motives, those they are willingly stating. However, when a bishop asks you for the truth and you choose to lie and get caught on it in the same discussion, you need to be taught a lesson, which I imagine is what Bishop Kasrimi intended to be when he instructed your Ductus that because he was a Ductus, his fuck-ups were your pack's fuck-ups.
For certain. And Alistair has been commanded to do whatever it takes to appease Bishop Kashrimi on the matter and to hopefully put into proper practice in the future. For the slights against you, I am continuing to make amends to the best of my ability. I am attempting to do so, but I will inform my pack that any further future dealings with you will go through me. That if they have something that they feel they need to discuss with you, that they will inform me of it and I will schedule an appointment. As I do not want them to be barging in on you or to waste your time on foolish matters.
As you see fit, that is for your pack to organize. However you see fit.
So, well, I appreciate, Bishop, that there is not anything else that seems to be on a personal level between us, that it is just professional barriers, which is good because professional barriers we can work through. I'm confident of it. Uh, I notice that Bishop Middlewaith has not accepted your challenge.
And the good Cardinal Rishi agreed that there was not quite enough for him to declare monomacy to happen anyway.
Very well. Okay, then I suppose that issue is settled. We
That
can.
issue is settled to the degree that I will follow the orders of my superiors in this issue. One of those orders is that at 21 bodies, the message cost to the project will not land on fireflies. It lands on Bishop Middleway. It's not forgiven, it's not forgotten, but you were
Understood.
tools used by a bishop, and in that case, it lands on the bishop's doorstep.
I see it as a waste of resources, and I'm not sure exactly what the point of that was. I cannot speculate. I mean, I could speculate, but I think enough of my pack members have thrown speculation as fact enough that I don't need to throw speculations around.
Hmm. Bishop Middleweight advise you to the new organizational structure as it pertains to areas and packs.
Yes, I actually made certain last night when I went hunting that I did not do so in an area that was not accessible to me by rights.
Hmm. So, I am currently under the impression that there are people in this city, true Canaanites, who have a trouble understanding what it means that I have been given duty over certain areas. I am expected to maintain uh, order and, enforce the sect's needs in those areas. It means that the next person that breaks them will end up as an example to the city.
Exactly. Understood. And Kaylee may have paid her debt and the PAC's debt, but there's a personal debt that I was given to think of a way to appease for my involvement in this situation with Darsanga. There have been events that have interfered with my original plan to present to you, but I will offer this, if this so suits you, that this example that you need to be made of, if it is my pack that transgresses, I will take responsibility for it. If it is another pack, I offer to be the instrument to set the example, should that be something that you feel is necessary.
If it's a member of your pack, it will be either a spiritual failing or a leadership failing or an individual failing. Now, if it's a spiritual failing, I'll hold you responsible. If it's a leadership failing, I'll hold your doctors responsible. If it's a failure in a personal level, I'll hold the person responsible. As it pertains to your offer to be the, shall we say, my action in one thing, that alone would suffice.
Very well. Then I
I'll
will.
I will direct you in a compensative manner in the interests of the sect.
Very well. I'm glad that you accept those terms. So that is one item of business that we have taken care of. the next item of business is the investigation into the death of one Kaylee Keir. I have had some obstacles, in trying to trace specifics, but I can tell you what I have found, and perhaps you can assist me in being able to tie up the final few loose ends.
Hmm.
As the last Cainite that we believe saw her alive was one Alice Bratos, who so far has been reluctant to meet with me to discuss the matter. But from my conversations with yourself and with my pack and with Bishop Middlewaith and with Bitasvet, that seems to be the last individual that she had contact with before she disappeared and then died. It would appear that she was visiting her mortal household that night, and after slaughtering her mortal family, was lost to the beast. So the specifics on who destroyed her would be either if a Cainite was with her, which I don't believe is the truth, but it's possible one may have been nearby just because of the situation, or she was put down in Greenwood by the mortal police, which, if that is the case, since there has been a very strong cover-up in the media and police over the situation, I would presume that whoever has control of the media and police in that area know the specific details as to her demise.
Greenwood is in southwest of Sussex. If it's not the bishop, the claiming authority over all of South Sussex, that is controlling the situation, I would imagine it's one of the fireflies who make their abode nearby.
Well, from my conversation with my pack and the Bishop Middlewaith, nobody has anywhere near that kind of control or influence on the police or media in the area, or at all, as most of my pack are either new to the city like myself, or babes in the unlife, and have not set up such controls yet. So somebody else in this city has that level of control of and influence in the area.
Not by myself, because quite frankly, I am not currently inclined to extend any aid south of the river. Well, southwest of the river. Southeast is a different matter.
Well, then if you are not aware of who has control of that area, then I would assume that that knowledge is not publicly known, as you strike me being the kind of individual that keeps track, very accurate track of such matters.
That would, I imagine, the options there are limited. I remember one Arthur Thane having some media access, but he is an unlikely person to bother about a death or a two. It leads me to suspect that you might have found a location of the Camarilla influence in the city.
I had thought that they were in the northwest near the airport.
Well, if the attention is drawn northwest to the airport, well, I'll ask yourself. You know the airport is going to draw attention because you have just set up clearly a hostile environment to locals. Where would
So,
you try grasping power?
oh, that's right.
You invite your
Diversion
enemy to
tactic.
attack. You invite your enemy to attack the castle, and meanwhile you operate elsewhere.
If that is the supposition, then I will turn my attention to the southeast and see if I can do more effective investigating there. Though my personal area of control is still being regularly patrolled, presumably by our enemies, as when I was out attempting to replenish myself, and he gestures to his leg, I spotted an individual who did not notice me, but was very obviously a Cainite and very obviously searching for individuals. So I will continue looking then, my investigation in that area. I have Bishop Middlewaith and Brother Crawford attempting on my behalf to contact Alice to assist me in closing off the last vestige of this investigation with respects to at least those true Cainites that may know something. I can grant you theories at this point, but theories are not facts, and I think we both would rather deal with facts.
Would the current working theory be that she fell to the beast and was then put down either by Cainites or mortals?
Well, that is the actual fact. My theories are more about why she was doing it, because it seems like a very foolish endeavor on her part, and I think the whole purpose of investigating how she died wasn't just the how, but to find out the why and potentially who's responsible.
Hmm. I would surmise that it's possible that she was trying to transition to a path. Or then she was just so close to the beast already that it seemed like a good idea.
Well, I had encouraged her to seek a mentor, but she hadn't found one the last I spoke, which would make me concerned with the idea that she was trying to transition with such little training in that regard prior, and her mental state was not very stable for her to be able to try something so recklessly.
Hmm.
But that is
I'll,
one of the working theories.
I'll give you a warning I wouldn't normally give to people. If it turns out that she indeed fell into Vassail, especially after what I said at the, well, shall we say, the priest's meeting, I will be looking at those people who were responsible of her spiritual well-being.
Exactly. And I would expect you to. And so will I.
Well, my eye shouldn't be falling on you. Anything that goes wrong with the Fireflies, I should be bringing forward to one Bishop Middleweight if I feel it's worth my time to talk to him.
Very well. And if it's not worth your time and you wish to communicate with him, then I can be as a middle ground, as Bishop Middlewaith has encouraged me to be a bit of a liaison, so to speak, between the two of you, if need be.
Oh? Now, how did he encourage you to do this, I wonder?
Well, he basically told me to do whatever it takes to make you happy and to appease you and to repay you for inconveniences and to make myself indispensable to you.
Did he tell you why he wanted you to do that?
I believe that it was partly to maintain good relations for the good of the sect. I'm sure probably there was some sort of wishful spying involved, but I think it would be an insult to assume that that isn't a factor. Um, but basically, because I see out of our pack, I seem to be the one that can conduct himself properly in your presence.
Kaylee, you managed it very well.
Yes, actually, you were one that she could conduct herself in as well.
Hmm. I'll point this out. It appears the Cardinal actually had laid eyes upon Kaylee as well.
I assumed so, since he spared her life and gave her a second chance and returned her to our care.
Hmm. And she indeed is lost to the sun. Now I have spoken with the doctors of the Cerberus, and I have advised her that there are some ongoing questions as to her possible participation in the problem, and I would like her to also conduct an investigation. So either your stories will be, shall we say, compliable, or we can start looking into who is lying.
Well, I would assume that she will find out the same information I have.
I imagine so. She did assure me that she was not responsible. I am inclined to agree since she shares my concern for the city. While she has her quirks, she seems to understand that assets to the city are not something you waste. There are plenty enough of distractions and disruptions. Assets are a rarity. Mortal, unblooded, or true canine, it doesn't matter.
Well, if she was not directly responsible, then there's a possibility, a third possibility, that this may have just been something that Kaylee chose to do without consulting with anyone and was not up to the situation.
Which is entirely possible.
She was prone to making decisions like that, but that may be the end assumption if we cannot discover more specifics. But I will
Hmm.
continue my investigation, and it is good to know that there is somebody else who is also looking deeply into it.
Hmm.
So I have one other item left that is kind of personal and kind of business. As I mentioned, there was a enemy Cainite who was lurking within or in the area of my domain up in the Trenton area, which is where Fireflies used to be based, and therefore they would probably expect us to be staying in that area, so they're trying to find where we are currently hiding. But I was wondering, are you aware of any method that the Camarilla may have in being able to curse our blood supply?
Are you having trouble waking up after a day's rest?
Well, that would be expected slightly because Bishop Middlewaith's activity the other day strengthened my beast, but it's been even worse than what I would anticipate. I am very much on top of my injuries. I seem to be fairly lethargic
Do
than
you
normal.
have trouble keeping the blood in when you
He
ingest?
seems very keen. He's like, I fed last night and it was very difficult. A lot of it ended up being wasted because of the difficulty I had.
Very good. I am looking into blood samples from all members of the sect in this city. I am actually slightly hopeful that this might be a malady of a medicinal type rather than a curse. Though the Cardinal would like people to look up if certain Tremere anti-tribu we are aware of is still in the city.
Oh, he is not in the city as far as I can tell. So I've been looking for that treacherous wretch since he abandoned us.
Which wretch are you talking about, I wonder?
I would be referring to the Frenchman, Christophe, who
Oh,
was originally priest.
I'm not giving that one a second thought. The person I'm talking about is an older acquaintance to the city,
Ah,
who actually, now I am not going to tell you as a fact to do anything. I'm not going to give you direction to do anything. I'm merely going to point out that the Cardinal, having heard from me of a certain oil rig out on the sea, expressed curiosity as to whether or not the Tremere anti-tribu in question was still there, and it might be a good way for a pack to get in good with the Cardinal to report yay or nay on the issue. If you wish to have a location, I can share it with you.
I think that would be very good if that information was shared. I feel some of the information about the airport specifically has not necessarily been shared openly to assist us in working cohesively as a city against it. Having this kind of information shared to allow individuals to take initiative would be beneficial.
That is the actually writes the details on a paper piece and slides it over to Seth. That is the approximate area for the place.
Your Eminence, you are aware that this is a potential condition?
The epidemic condition, I have
Yes.
a reason to suspect it could be a medical condition, yes. That is why I am actually demanding. Let's put it in a different manner. I am saying it's vital to the sect's interest that I get to examine blood samples from as many people in this city as possible.
Well, I will offer blood here, since I am in your presence and we know that I am infected. Do you know how long, like, are the symptoms constant? Because I am a little concerned with the ability of not being able to feed easily.
I have a suspicion that it's not going to be an ongoing situation, because even if it's a disease that's virulent enough to grab your blood or system somehow, I imagine it's still having a hard time with the gift of gain. But I cannot say for certain because the study is just beginning.
Very well.
There are a few theoretical cures I have in mind on the assumption that it's in the blood and nowhere else, but I have not yet positively identified the culprit. And the worst
Which,
case scenario is that I can confirm that the large amount of our sect in this city suffering from the symptoms aren't victims of a medical epidemic. That would mean that our enemies have brought to bear a lot of magic to curse people.
Well, and that's why I thought to ask you. I actually hadn't even thought of it as being a medical condition, as I've never met a canite who suffered from a human ailment. So it wasn't because of your experience as a doctor. It was my understanding that the Zemis are well versed in blood magic, and your insights from that perspective may shed some understanding.
I would prefer to eliminate the one that's easier to eliminate, which is a
Very
medical
well.
condition. If there is no medical cause, well, then that leaves the avenue of possible magic being used.
Very well. Well, I will document my symptoms to the best of my ability, and I will provide those to you to supplement my blood sample.
As good a timetable as you can of,
Um,
for the record, did Bishop Middleways pass on you any notion about Warderies and the Cardinal's opinion of those at the moment?
to be honest, I have been personally occupied with Kaylee's investigation. I took some time in assisting Brother Crawford in educating Bitta Svet as her role as priest. But other than that, I haven't spent a lot of time, to be honest, at Zycon Studios to have crossed paths with Bishop Middlewaith since the declaration of monumency.
Hmm. Well, in that case, the Cardinal, from what how I understood his statement, stated that even if it rankles us to withhold ourselves from auctoritas retae at this time, since it's possible for either the infection or the curse to be passed through shared blood or shared vitae, more specifically, we would probably be well advised to avoid doing so, even in ritual circumstances for now.
Is there a chance that sharing herds would also potentially spread this?
It is a possibility, especially if people aren't going out of their way to maintain personal hygiene. For instance, I suspect a lot of people forget to brush their teeth. Yes, seems a very mortal concern until you start thinking about what happens if you drink from three people and one of them was infected with something.
That is true. Very well. Bishop Bratos, would you mind if I pass this information on to the whole of the city to ensure that everybody is fully aware?
As you see fit, the Cardinal's advice as it pertains to Wardery, definitely. It was stated as such. It's not for long term, and that's the reason I am quite keen on getting as good information as possible from those who are infected.
Very well. I will make sure that all of the priests are informed and can pass on to their respective packs. That should cover off everyone.
If the
Uh,
priests are aware, it will be a surprise to me if Bouldery is being conducted without the priests present.
well, exactly. um, and actually, it's unfortunate because that is what Brother Crawford and I taught Sister Svet the other day, was to ensure that she knew how to properly do a Voldery.
Did you conduct one?
We did in the process of teaching her.
And that is before or after you had symptoms?
It was before I had symptoms, after the quorum, which now that we discuss it, I believe that Brother Kruger seemed to be behaving oddly that evening, so he may already be infected.
There are a few people on a list I have in mind that I suspect to already be carrying the infection. However, be discreet. If you can keep a good eye on her and actually ask after her well-being, because I suspect you have already been infected at the quorum. It's a reasonable assumption. And if it happens that she contracts after the shared Waldery and exhibits symptoms, she wasn't present at the quorum, that would give us a likely vector of contagion, also the time till symptoms manifest.
Very well. In my communication, then, I will instruct that anybody with symptoms should reach out to you.
Any and all packs, even those not infected, should send me blood samples. Now, I don't expect everyone to walk in over, do all this. I just need those blood samples to happen in a relatively clean clean containers, clean knives, clean letting off point. That's all I need for the Vitae samples. And here's a notion. If it's virulent enough to affect canines, I wonder what it's doing to the mortal herd.
Well, it would be interesting to find out if anybody that's infected has an active ghoul, if the ghoul is exhibiting any symptoms.
The ghouls can burn blood and at least counteract the problem somewhat. Actually, that task we discussed about?
Yes.
This will be a small one, I imagine. Relatively easy, especially if one employs the brain first and the brawn last. Now, as it's been established, somebody has some control over the media. Otherwise, a lot more things would be hitting the news.
Yes.
However, I don't recall reading of an epidemic among the hordes. Now, that would mean that there is no such epidemic, or it could mean that somewhere along the line of epidemic, hospitals, doctors, press, and news, it gets cut off. I'd like you to check that line and see where it cuts off.
Very well. I will do so.
Because if there are no problems in the hospitals of our fair city, then there is not an epidemic, which will be relatively surprising for myself. Because if canines are getting infected, I expect a lot of the herd to be suffering a lot worse. So it would be speaking in favor of not a medical concern, but a magical concern. However, if there is an epidemic, it gives us an opening into figuring out at what level that power is being used.
Excellent. And I will also follow up with my herd, as I have fed since the quorum. If was the point of my infection, I will see if any that I have been feeding off of has contracted.
I've promised to keep the authority of the city informed, and as soon as I have a cure available, I'll be sharing that information as well. If it's a medical concern. If it's not medical concern and I concluded as such, I'll share that information with the city.
excellent. And if it is not a medical concern, then I believe a search in force to the oil rig would be a wise idea.
No, I imagine the Cardinal would like that checked anyway. He is understandably concerned of the possibility of well, old for this city, Premier anti-tribal, who hasn't participated with Waldery or anything else for a while.
Very well. I know just the individuals that I would select for such a mission.
No, you tell.
Well, I actually would see it as being a good opportunity for Brother Crawford and Brother Kruger and I to get to know each other better.
An interesting notion. Do let me know how it goes on.
Very well. I shall do so. But I believe I have covered off all of the personal and business matters. Is there anything else that you would like, Your Eminence, while I am here, other than a sample of my vitae?
Murdo actually hands you an empty steel cup. Um, Nothing comes to mind at the moment. Oh, one small personal detail. Should you mention the notion of brushing your teeth and minding your personal hygiene in the presence of Bishop Middleway, I would be greatly entertained if you can give me an accurate description of his
Very
predictable
well.
outburst at the moment.
I will not include that information in my communication until I've had an opportunity to speak with him face to face.
Oh, I am certain it will be educational.
And that Seth will, as he usually does, bite his tongue to release blood into the cup. And that puts me to 4 blood points, so that is the point where Seth will need to make an initial hunger roll. Cross our fingers here, because this could be very good for me. Excellent. So you can see that he's struggling a little bit with his beast, but he's managing to contain it. And then he
Mm.
slides the cup back. I will take my leave now and spread the word.
Let me walk you to the door, says Murdoch, and actually escort Seth to the door. Pleasure to have had you as a guest.
Thank you, Your Eminence. I will be back when I have more to report.
And the two go their own ways.
Yes. And with that, another successful scene where Firefly didn't set fire to his own house, and more information is shared and discussed. So thank you for watching. We will see you, or I will see you again after the weekend, and let's see what the next month brings our fair city of Zooster. Good night, and sleep tight, because we're the ones that stalk in the night.